There have been a lot of NHL players who are disliked by seemingly every hockey fan outside of the fan base of the team that player plays for, usually for similar reasons, having some cheeky on-ice antics or being consistently dirty players. Yet, with one suspension to his name that came long after all the criticism started, Trevor Zegras currently seems to be at or near the top of that list these days. I've seen ridiculous article after ridiculous article, mindless video after mindless video, dumbass comment after dumbass comment criticizing Zegras and his game from people who clearly don't watch the Ducks play outside of whenever whatever team they're a fan of plays them, if that. And when I throw away any bias I have as a Ducks fan in an attempt to understand these perspectives, I do not see any logical reason for this disdain or criticism. Corey Perry played for the Ducks for a very long time, and I can fully understand why many people disliked Perry over the years due to some of his antics on the ice. I see some vague parallels as they both occasionally continue to, let's say, show emotion when games get out of hand, but so do many players, and it could be argued that simply caring enough to not just quietly bow out when you're on a team who's lost this much is a plus. But really on the ice, Trevor Zegras and Corey Perry don't have much in common at all. Has some of the dislike come because he's taken a couple rather aggressive looking slashing penalties over the years? Maybe. I can certainly acknowledge that he has taken a few of those, but he's almost never the antagonist, randomly slashing people to get under their skin. They're almost always in retaliation to something he feels was legitimately missed by the refs. Yet again, articles, videos, and comments based around plain old dislike for Trevor Zegras, or how his game is dropped off, or how he looks unhappy, or how he's going to be traded because he's not doing well, seem to get traction time and time again. And I'm mildly curious as to why people who clearly don't watch him play feel this way, because you'll be hard-pressed to find any Ducks fans who share those sentiments, as most Ducks fans are consistently impressed with his play and his effect on the team as a whole. So why does Trevor Zegras garner all this negativity? I'm assuming most of this stems from Zegras making a few flashy offensive plays, which have been seen a lot, and the league obviously wants to push its exceptional and unique highlights to a wider audience. So many people are simply aware of Trevor Zegras who don't actually watch him play, and therefore many people only associate him with those trick shots because that's all they've seen, which has apparently left a shocking amount of people with the opinion that that's all he does. He just plays Instagram hockey, they say, because we've seen people making hockey videos for Instagram playing in the NHL, right? Specifically, it's the lacrosse plays that get attention and earn him the critique of being a trick shot merchant, an oxymoron if I've ever heard one, as who have you ever seen play in the NHL strictly for their trick shots? Yeah, the Ducks are like, he's not that good, but he does trick shots. Keep him in. Like, what? It just shows how worked up people get over a few highlights.
Yeah.
That, of course, the league is going to make posts about because they make posts about just about anything. And obviously, just mentioning him makes people money, as most longtime and even most casual fans are familiar with his name because of those highlights. Casual awareness that's usually reserved for the league's top players.
Trevor Zegras is must-see TV for me now.
However, no one on the NHL side and no Ducks fans have ever hyped him up as a top player in the league, nor has anyone compared his production to the league's top players. So, is he overrated or overhyped because he's provided a handful of highlights? Or are you just an idiot if you view it that way and all it takes is a handful of highlights for you to view a player as being the next big thing? Besides, at this point, I think we've seen enough lacrosse plays that we can stop labeling them as trick shots, and rather relatively high percentage plays that often seem to be one of, if not the best option available. Plays not reserved for trick shot merchants, but rather plays we've seen the best players in the league attempt, plays we've seen long before Zegras, and plays we'll see much more of long after he's done playing. By the way, anyone who remembers the Sidney Crosby hype before he even got to the NHL will remember this. But let me guess, Sidney Crosby has been bad for the game and plays what? MySpace hockey, right? The Michigan has been referred to as a low percentage play that disconnects you from teammates. Well, maybe for some, Andrei Svechnikov doesn't have a great attempt to goal ratio, but in the case of Zegras, he's attempted, 7 and scored 4. With one being called off due to a teammate being an inch offside like a minute prior to the goal. I'd call that taking advantage of an opportunity at a very high rate of success. That probably would have resulted in less goals had he not done it. It doesn't help that he's the best shootout guy in the league right now, so that means more highlights of plays that aren't hockey plays or skill it up or whatever other dumb things people say. I'm by no means a fan of shootouts, but they're currently part of the game whether anyone likes it or not, and seeing as 77 games were decided via shootout this past season alone, being good at them is a valuable asset. So is it that Zegras' point production has dropped off from where it was 2 years ago? So now he's just an overhyped circus show has-been that the Ducks should trade? Well, could his lack of recent offensive production possibly be that he's suffered multiple serious injuries, that he plays for a team that hasn't made the playoffs in 7 years, who only now are slowly creeping out of a rebuild, or the fact that he's played for one of the worst coaches in league history, an automatic top 3 pick if you will, and now a defensive-minded coach in his first stint of NHL coaching, whose defensive mind has yet to pay dividends for the team in any way, shape, or form, who both deployed full man-to-man defensive zone systems that neutralize a ton of their own offensive chances, while only playing on rosters full of young players and nearly toasted veterans, all in an era of the NHL where rebuilds are taking longer and longer than ever across the league. Yeah, that stuff just might have something to do with it, and despite all that, has improved his all-around game while remaining one of the team's most dangerous offensive players game in, game out, looking as confident with the puck as ever, and is a big reason why the Ducks are finally coming of age and turning into a competitive team once again. Is he ever going to be a Selke candidate? Almost certainly not. Are the underlying defensive stats fantastic? No. But is he putting in more effort on the defensive end and attempting to improve? Yes. Just about every single living Ducks fan will tell you that he's drastically improved on the defensive end and that his offensive ability and IQ are superb. He finds open ice and creates time and space in transition with the best of them. He's able to create offensive zone chances at such a high level and frequency because he has incredible spatial awareness, filthy hands, and most importantly, can bring it all together with his head up. I haven't seen many players who have to look at the puck less than Trevor Zegras, and that combination of skills results in him consistently forcing high danger chances that lesser players simply cannot create and that more experienced teammates will finish. The Ducks have been at or near the bottom of the league in goal scoring every year of his career so far, and being a playmaker on a team that simply cannot finish good plays does not result in stats. It's also worth mentioning that the Ducks have way more players with top-line potential on the roster than in his first 2 seasons, so he hasn't been getting the same opportunity as those years when he was one of the only capable offensive players, which most Ducks fans aren't happy with. Whether they're poor coaching decisions, simply experimenting with other options, or both. As a result, Zegras has been learning to play the wing instead of center, and only started to get back on the power play towards the second half of this season. Again, it's worth noting that for some reason, people compare this guy to top players in the league, and talk about him like he was projected to be a generational player who was unanimously stated to go first overall in the draft and did. We're talking about a 9th overall pick, not a first overall pick, a 9th overall pick who, despite all the struggles and team circumstances I just mentioned, has averaged the 9th most points per game in his first 5 seasons amongst 9th overall picks in league history, and the 3rd most in the past 30 years. And for the record, he's arguably done more to grow the game and inspire the youth to play hockey than most of those picks combined.
We saw this in an NHL game last week when Anaheim did it.
Is it possible he'll be traded sometime? Obviously, he's not some untouchable piece. But the notion that they need to move on from him because his game has totally fallen off is something just about no one who actually watches him will even moderately agree with. But obviously, with how emotion-based these dumb takes are from people who don't watch the Ducks, they don't stem purely from on-ice play. I've seen people say Zegras is so cocky. Is it that he celebrates goals or smiles? No one else does that, right? Is it that he broke a penalty box camera once? No one else has done that, right? So is it because of the league's one big advertisement with him? Is it simply because Zegras was on the cover of another beloved NHL roster update in North America? Do you think he campaigned to be on the cover of an NHL game? Or did the league take a chance on marketing the game with the player responsible for some of their most viral by hockey standards clips the sport has ever seen, not only in recent years, but ever, by making plays never witnessed in the league and possibly even the sport? And it of course doesn't hurt that he can speak in front of a camera like a functioning member of society, especially in regards to making players more relatable for children, who are, believe it or not, the primary target for selling NHL video games. The last time the league wanted to market someone based on some flashy play and not being socially awkward on the cover of a video game was PK Subban. He was criticized a ton over his career, but he wasn't blindly criticized to this extent, despite the fact that he played in one of the biggest hockey markets for a long time instead of one of the smallest ones, while being very outspoken by NHL standards and slew-footing folks left, right, and center over the course of his career, more than earning his notorious moniker PK Sluban. He even got one in on guess who? Trevor Zegras. That earned him a maximum fine. But again, even those didn't earn him the left, right, and center criticism that Zegras gets. The cherry on top of these, for whatever reason, personal vendettas against Zegras are his interviews, which are nothing out of the ordinary by athletes from other sports standards, but we're talking about hockey, which notoriously features some of, if not the most boring, bland on-camera personalities in all of sports. Where again, Trevor Zegras breaks the mold by simply conversing like a human instead of a robot hell-bent on keeping it up, playing their game, getting books deep, and being better, resulting in some interviews being more memorable than 99% of NHL interviews simply because he doesn't sound like he's gonna shit himself if he has to speak on camera, and doesn't give socially awkward answers that make it seem like you're watching someone's first ever human interaction.
I think the bongo anthem threw us off a little bit in the first, but once we recovered from that, we were back to our game, which was good.
By the dawn's early light.
And that, for whatever reason, seems to rub many a fragile fan the wrong way. Fans always say they want to see great plays and they want more personality from the players because they're so boring. That is, until they do the bare minimum to be creative on the ice and more lively than a brick off of it. And then you get a bunch of the same people saying, I just can't stand these plays and people who can construct sentences and therefore they suck, overrated, overhyped. I'm not saying you have to like every or any interview he's done either. There's some really stupid, I guess, themed interviews out there. But even those don't have anything on the dumb things a ton of players do off the ice that they get minimal, if any, disdain for. So is it jealousy or naivety? Or is it that since he provided a few moments seen by the masses and doesn't give typical interview answers, he became a household name in the hockey world, meaning his name gets clicks and virtual pats on the back even if you have nothing of value to say? And whether whoever makes this stuff agrees with the sentiments or not, the clickbait narratives remain the same. Many people, for whatever reason, love to hate Zegras. And since the vast majority of media surrounding this sport are so devoid of creativity and resort to regurgitating whatever seems like a popular opinion so they won't get much, if any, visible criticism for their work that takes no effort to produce, I, and I'm sure every other person who actually watches the Ducks, will have more torturous garbage to look forward to whenever they're recommended hockey stuff on this, the godforsaken clickbait-driven internet, going on about how overrated Trevor Zegras is, how his confidence has disappeared, and how much his game has fallen off. And you wonder why most NHL players don't want to go against the grain in any way. Not because these idiotic opinions and nonsense critiques mean anything, but because it just isn't worth the hassle.